take a look at medieval architecture during the feudal period of European history. And there are two distinct characteristics that we're going to need to take a look at. Let's start off with this. This is what's called Romanesque. Now, Romanesque architecture is from the early Middle Ages, but it also has some characteristics that are left over from sort of the late Roman period. So here are the list of things that we're going to create that will characterize Romanesque architecture. So thick, heavy walls, small windows, heavy, thick towers, rounded arches, wooden ceilings. Also, they were limited in height. They couldn't go too high. And you can see here in these.
Do you remember the points he said? You can take down the points which he has told you now. So these are the common pictures which is found in Romanesque architecture. The first one is thick, heavy walls. When you see all the walls in even if you take any kind of chapel, you can find the walls are so thick. And next one is the small size windows. So in this picture itself, you can see the size of the window, which is very small, and it had heavy and thick towers. So you can see the towers here. All the towers which are located like they are made up of heavy brick walls. Then next one, they had all type of rounded arches. Then the ceiling inside the internal ceiling was wooden ceiling, as you saw in the Palatine Chapel, and all the churches were limited in height. That's because they didn't have any other element to support the structure, and it was completely supported only by the walls. So I think you can see this as load-bearing structure itself because it doesn't have any other support other than the brick walls or the stone walls here.
In height, they couldn't go too high. And you can see here in these pictures, these are sort of churches that have designs that are sort of characteristic of Romanesque. So a lot of those features are shown in these illustrations right here. Now, we're going to compare that with what's called Gothic. Now, Gothic is something.
So next one we'll be seeing about the Gothic architecture. So in Gothic architecture, we can find these common elements. He has told the differences between the Romanesque and the Gothic architecture. It all comes under medieval ages only. So the next topic, that is Unit 2, will be Italian Gothic and French Gothic. So before that, we'll see the characteristics of the Gothic architecture.
That comes from the high to late Middle Ages, and it is characterized by what are known as flying buttresses. Flying buttresses are these sort of winged-shaped features that come off the sides of Gothic cathedrals that help hold it up. There's also stained glass windows, large stained glass windows, lofty ceilings, so the ceilings are going to be very high, and enormous windows on the sides, covered mostly with stained glass. And then pointed arches, as you can see in this picture here, the doorways above had pointed arches. They also were built to great heights, so some of these Gothic cathedrals were very, very tall in terms of how high they could become. And so here's another example here. You can see very lofty towers. The bell towers are very tall. And again, here you can see the pointed arches above the doors. There are some round arches there, rose window above it. And on the right here is a close-up picture of what flying buttresses look like. And these flying buttresses are sort of support structures that are outside the church that allows the walls to then go to these enormous heights. They carry the weight load of the building. And then since
See, these portions are called as flying buttresses. So they are projected in the outer side. So they had towers also, which were present like the Romanesque period, but these towers had buttresses being supporting the main structure. So because of this typology, because of the flying buttresses present here, this structure went to more heights. Okay, so they had large the heights which are greater than the Romanesque period of churches.
the walls and the structure that would hold up the walls.
Do you remember seeing these structures anywhere in movies? Do you remember seeing these structures like the flying buttress structures in anywhere in movies? All have slept.
No, ma'am.
At least say something here. Have you seen these kind of structures in movies?
No, ma'am.
No?
தாண்டி வருது.
Innai தாண்டி வரல. No. Not in Tamil movies. Okay. Tell me about English movies. You could have watched a lot of movies during the lockdown. At least you remember something to tell.
Harry Potter, ma'am.
Correct. I was expecting the same answer. So Harry Potter, we can find him running through these buttresses. How many of you have watched Harry Potter? If you have watched Harry Potter, you can see the person moving around the buttresses, and the walls will be fortified, and you can see the structure, the entire structure looking so massive. The place where he goes for studying. If you have not seen, please watch the movie.
Outside the building, you can now replace the solid, thick, heavy walls with stained glass windows. So this is something that's becomes a definitive sort of characteristic of Gothic architecture as opposed to Romanesque architecture. So that's something that we're going to look at a little bit closer in class, but this is just a quick list of the two different characteristics that you should be familiar with. Let's take a look at
So he has told two distinctive characteristics of the Romanesque architecture and Gothic architecture. So in this we saw about only the part one of Romanesque architecture has been taught to you, and to explain in detail about the nave, aisle, and transepts, I'll show you a picture. In this, you can see that the parts of Romanesque architecture or any kind of cathedral is being marked. That is, they have given part elevation and part section of the part plan and part elevation section has been given here. So here you can see the nave, that is the central portion, which is running along from the entry to the end of the church is called the nave, and aisles are the portions which are on the sides of the nave. So you have arcades near the nave. So there are arcades near the nave where it supports the aisle portion. So you can see the aisle here, and these are the columns and the circles which are being depicted in your plan are the columns. All these huge circles, like huge blocks, black colors are representing your columns, and here we have a crossing, that is the uh, as I told you, there is a cross plan. They have maintained only the cross plan in planning the churches of the Romanesque type. So they had a cross running on the horizontal side and the vertical side. This is the crossing area. So when it joins with the horizontal area, you can find the crossing here. And this is the transept. So usually the transept will run from the northern side to the southern side. So this transept will show the horizontal side of the cross plan. So you can see this is northern side and this is the southern side, and we have an altar here, and here there's a choir. So these people will be um, the people here will be singing songs for the prayers, and here is the main altar, and behind the altar we have the apes. Okay, so these are the main parts of any kind of cathedral which is there in medieval ages. And do you remember what we saw in the last class about the walls, the brick wall? I told you about barrel wall, brick wall, groin wall. Do you remember that? So we'll be seeing part two. Okay, part two of unit one. So part one was about the introduction of Romanesque architecture starting from the Western Europe, and we saw only one example from that. And next one is the next one we are seeing the Romanesque period, which was existing in all the other countries like Italy, France, England, and all these had Romanesque styles of cathedrals. So we have started with Italy. I hope so. I think I have taught till this, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we saw about the characteristic features of Romanesque architecture in Italy and what were the elements which were given here. And next one is about the Pisa Cathedral. Here you can see the cathedral, the main cathedral, Pisa Cathedral here. And Campanile is nothing but the Pisa Tower. And next one is your baptistry. So here you can see the photograph of Pisa Group. So this is the main cathedral, and this is your Campanile and Campanile or Campanile. I don't know how to pronounce it. So, and this one is your baptistry here. So, in detail, we'll see about the cathedral plan and see the walls which are being built. See, they have only slender columns running throughout the nave and aisle. So these columns will form just an arcade of rows and columns. Okay, and this entire wall has thick. This is built with heavy or thick walls, and this building is a very fine example of Romanesque period, and it was built during 1063 to 1118, and then it was again, I think they renovated it from 1261 to 1272, and it had a different kind of individuality, and it followed the same principle like basilica plan, and it had long rows of columns. You can see there are long rows of columns, and it is connected by arches and double aisles and a nave. So it had a double height aisle, and the nave is being here, and it had a timber roof as usual, and the exterior was colored with red and white marble. The exterior wall facade was done with red and white marble. And when you see this, you can find the massiveness of the Pisa Cathedral. So the aisle had 2 to 3 story height. It was going more and more above here, and it is in the ground floor. They had a wall arcading. So the arcades were uh, done near the wall itself, and the entrance facade was so it ran right into the gable. So the entrance facade, see, these are called the gables. Okay, and it had elements, decorative elements also, and it had three transepts, which each with an apse at the end. So you can see the transepts here, and they had apse. Apse is the semicircular portion present. So they had apse in the end, and elliptical dome was provided after the later date. So in this date during the 1261 1261 to 72, they added the elliptical dome here in the crossing, and it had ornamental features. Here you can see the this is the plan, and you can see part section of this, and here also you can see the part section. Okay, and this entire portion is called the bay. The span or the height of the entire structure is called the bay, and the central portion is called the nave, and the third one is called the ale. You can see there are two sides of the nave. We have ales. Okay, and fourth one is the nave arcade. So near the nave, we can find all the arches being here. So it is called the nave arcade, and the clear story is the one which has clear height from the top to bottom. Okay, and next one is the cluster pair. So in this they had columns which were slender when you see this, but you can see how thick the columns are here, present here in uh, the drawing itself. So they had clustered wire columns here, and this is called the Triforium. So the mid portion where you have supports is called the Triforium, and eighth one is the Buttresses. The main feature, what he told in Romanesque architecture is they had they had circular arches, and it had only thick walls, right? So the thick wall was the main reason of the Romanesque architecture, and these buttresses formed the thick walls here. They didn't have a support using the flying buttress. It was supported completely with the buttresses near the wall itself. All the and ninth one is the flying buttress. I think they have introduced this in the later stage, but in the initial stage, it didn't have that. So I'll be showing a picture of the next, which was original and which was later added. And the tenth one is the wooden roof. You can see the wooden roof here. Can you see the difference between this section and this one? You can see there is a triangular roof here, and here you can see the hemispherical roof. This hemispherical roof was added in the later stage. Initially, they had only the triangular roof, and they converted this into a hemispherical roof after the renovation work. And 11th one is the colonnade, that is number of columns present. After one or two slides, I'll be showing you the earlier pictures and the existing pictures. Okay, and this one is about the Campanile Pisa. That's the Pisa Tower. This tower was it got importance because of the slanting nature. Actually, it was built only to stand straight, but due to the overweight of the structure, this foundation got toppled. So you can see that the foundation has been crossed over here, and it is projecting to nearly 4.2 meters from the base. When you see this slanting angle, this distance between the straight line and the slanting portion is nearly 4.2 meters. You see, it has 8 stories, and it is a circular tower with 16 meters diameter, and it started leaning only because of the subsidence in the foundation. And as you can see, this upper part of the tower is slanting because it had a uh, it had a problem with the foundation. And when you see the structure, it looks like it's unstable. So they are even now they fear to go up, but still they are going up. And then there was they added a stage called Bell Stage after 1350. You can see the period of construction, that is 1174 to 1271. These are the plans at various levels. So this is the bottom plan, and here you can find this middle plan is similar in all the stories, and the topmost plan here. So this structure, this portion is the inner one. Okay, next is the baptistry. So even the baptistry you can find the difference. It was designed by Diotis Salvi, architect Diotis Salvi, and the period was from 1153 to 1265, and it had a circular plan. So the central space was nearly 60 feet. This central circle was nearly 60 feet, which is 18.3 meters, and it was separated by 4 piers and 8 columns from the A. And the ale was 2-story height, and the building had a outer diameter of 39.3 meters. So the entire diameter was 39.3 meters, and it was surrounded by low story by off columns connected by semicircular arches. So when you see the section, you can find the difference. See here, you can see that they are connected with the semicircular arches here, and it is surmounted by Gothic traditions. They Next picture I will show you the elevation. So that's how they have surmounted the Gothic style. They had used Gothic style in its original design, and initially it had a truncated cone shaped crown, and then it was replaced by the hemispherical roof. So this one is the earlier one, and here they have given the later stage. Here you can see this. See, this is the existing elevation. Now after renovation, this is the existing elevation, and they have used all these kind of arches for decorative purpose, which is found in Gothic style. And the original elevation, this half part is your existing elevation, and the original was this, where you can find just the arcades being run over, and it had a truncated cone shape. It had a cone shape in the top. Okay, in the section also you can find this. This is the original. This half is your original, and this half is your existing. So here they have modified this truncated cone. So you can see the difference here. Till this they have given a truncated shape, and then they have added a hemispherical cone, and this portion has been extended here. So they have tried to give the Gothic style of architecture in this baptistry. So you can see the walls having all the arcades in the ground floor. As I told you when when I was telling you about the planning, I told you that they had the arcades in the ground floor. So all have been placed in the walls itself. It doesn't project out. It is placed only in the walls, but it has it represents the arcades here. You can see the baptistry. So that is all about Pisa group. Did you understand about this?
Yes, ma'am.
This entire plan is a Pisa group. Completely, we have to tell about the Pisa Cathedral, the Campanile, the baptistry here, and the Campo Santo. We have not shown the plan for the Campo Santo. We can explain these three alone. But when you draw the key plan, you have to draw all these things. Okay, next one we will go for France, Romanesque architecture in France, and it is following the same principle. That is, churches were cruciform in plan or the cross in plan, and it had two types of walls. Vault which is being supported. In the south, the nave had the barrel vault, and in the north, it had the rib walls. So you can see the difference here. It had the barrel walls completely in the southern side, and the northern side it had the rib walls, and and it was richly decorated facades where you can see this art columns being decorated with motifs, and they used Roman architectural features. So initially, they Initially, in the last class, I told you that they adapted the features of Roman architecture. No? So they have used the Roman architecture features in the France architecture, and here it is supported by massive walls and recessed chapels. I'm just showing you a typical cathedral in France. Then we'll show you the example of it. So these pictures are just for the explanation of what all is given here. They started developing the walls, uh, and few churches didn't have any aisles, so those churches had blind nave wall arcades. Like it had just the arcades near the wall itself, like what we saw in Pisa Cathedral. And the cloister arcades are elaborated with couple columns. These are called the cloister arcades, and it was also given in the depth of the wall. And we had few carved capitals, so which was supporting the narrow base, and doorways had recessed jambs, and the western portals assemble the horizontal entablature of Roman columns. So here you can see the type of architecture being followed in France. They started developing a pier called compound pier. So when you see the structure, you can see the massiveness. So a single pier will have bricks, and this one has bricks on all the sides. So you see the shaft, and you can see the cross section of the compound pier here. And here they have given piers and arches being supported from here, and they had narrow sized windows. So the windows were long, but it had narrow sized, and they had semicircular heads, and it was there to admit light. So here you can have some glass openings here so that you can have light. And the western facades of churches were distinguished by two flanking towers. When you see these towers, you can see the western side. All churches in the western side were having the two flanking towers, and they had massive side walls with flat buttresses. You can see that they didn't have any flying buttresses; they had only the flat buttresses, as followed in all the Romanesque style. And they had four attached half columns around the square core. So when you see the core, you'll see how it is being there. See here, they have four columns in the square core. Okay, this is one of the example for France, Romanesque architecture in France. It's called Abe Hawks homes. It was a famous cathedral during the period, and it was constructed during 1060 to 1081. It is also called as Saint Etienne. Okay, and it is a church which was found in Normandy, and it is a product of prosperity and power of Norman Duke. They were the period was ruled by Normans, so it was a power of prosperity and power. It was started by William the Conqueror, and you can see the western facade is flanked by two square towers, and it became the prototype of Gothic facades in the later side. Later, you can see it. When I show you the Gothic style churches, you can see that these towers were given as prototype for all the kind of churches, and it was crowned by two octagonal spires with angle pinnacles, which is added in the 13th century. So initially they didn't have this, and they added in the 13th century. And see, in the plan also you can find that they have added few portions of the plan after the period of construction. So you can see the depth of width of the cathedral is 73 feet here, and in the later date they have added few elements after the transepts here. So which had different kind of arcades, and it had wooden ceiling. The nave had wooden ceiling, and it was changed to walls. Then they started changing it to the walls. Then the wall passages had clear story window, and they developed Triforium gallery with half barrel vault and angle rolls were used for the first time. They used angle rolls here on the main arches. Do you have a copy of Bannister Fletcher with you? Anyone? Like you have PDF of that, or you have a book of Bannister Fletcher?
No, ma'am.
No. So when if you have PDF, I think I have it. I'll just check once. If I have a PDF, I will just share you. You can see uh, all these drawings, like all the periods of Romanesque architecture and Gothic architecture being depicted in the Bannister Fletcher very well. So all those sketches will also be looking so good, so that you can see that uh, drawings and you can start sketching in your notebooks. Okay, so this is about England, Romanesque architecture style in England. It had two type of architecture in England. One is the Anglo-Saxon architecture. The other one is the Norman period. They had two types, so Norman and Saxon. So you can see the difference here itself. Saxon, which had slender columns, I think, and Norman period had the walls which were um, placed like brickwork itself. And this Anglo-Saxon was developed during 10th to 11th century, and they used western and central towers. It had few construction techniques which had long and short quaining, strip work, narrow pilasters sometimes forming decorative pattern, twin openings, triangular heads with mid-wall shafts, bold moldings of simple rectangular sections of bulbous and more complex form, and double splayed windows and megalithic construction. So you don't understand anything here. We'll see the pictures of these buildings and then we'll say I explain about this. And in the Norman period, they had this compound fire again, and it was destined to symbolize the new order. They wanted to give a new order, new style kind of thing, and they had major innovations in this time. So that was a compound fire, and and they had tripartite clear story base. So you can see they had all these partitions which were given here. This is called the tripartite clear story base, where the portion has been divided into three parts. Okay, and the interior face of the wall passage transformed into three-arched composition, which is supported by columns. And next one is it had cushioned capitals and architectural sculptures with new ornamental motifs. You can, and then they started using the rib walls again. The Tower of London is an example of this in England. So the Tower of London is a whole building. Like you had the tower here, and you have the external wall, and here you had the moat, and then you have the fortified walls. Sorry, this is the moat here, and you have again the fortified walls being built. So this entire structure will look like a palace or the fortified structures, and this was placed in the river Thames, near the river Thames, and this structure is all these structures which we are showing is still existing. So whenever you can, if you're going to London, or if you're going to some other places like France and Italy, you can find all these buildings still existing there, and you can find the parts of Tower of London in this. So this will be the plan of London. So this plan is for the central one. The small central portion is this plan, and this was built in the year 1086 to 97. And when you see, you can see that they have been developed in a concentric plan. So it is assumed to form as concentric castles, and they have successive lines of fortification. Here we have one fortification, and then we have one more thing, and the other one is here. So it had a rectangular shape plan. So it had 3 stories. Topmost was divided into two later, and it stands in the center of the. Well, here you can see that they have given staircases in this corners, and it stands in the inner bailey. It stands here, and it is surrounded by wall and 13 towers. 13 towers are being here. So this fortified wall here, and we can find here 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So 13 towers are being surrounded with the wall here, and it's again surrounded by outer bailey. And this wall will have 8 towers. And then we have the encircling moat. Like how we see in the olden days, we can find the moat here. Why is what is the purpose of moat? Can anyone answer what is the purpose of moat? What do you mean by moat? Do you know what is meant by moat? I hope all have left the class.
No, ma'am.
Then tell me the answer. What is meant by moat? You know or not? You don't know.
Yeah, ma'am. Don't know, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, moat is a structure which is present outside the castle. Uh, Last time I told you about Bahubali movie, right? If you have seen Bahubali Part 2 movie, um, after after Prabhas comes with his mother, and the Rana will come and capture his mother and get inside the castle again in Bahubali Part 2.
Yes, ma'am.
At that time, a door will be closing. The wooden door, they will be closing the wooden door, and there you can find the small portion which is lying below. So that is called the moat, where you have water all the time. It will be filled with water, and that moat will be filled up with crocodiles. Most probably, crocodiles will be there. Other than that, you can find. I hope they have some forts have fire. If somebody is trying to cross the thing, they will create fire there, or they have structures which will protect this entire fortified towers. So we have some kind of structures like that. So that portion is called moat. Not even in not only in England, we have lot of the fortified walls here in the castles, which was built during the Pallava period, Chola period. All those times where we had moats surrounding the castles. So this will be a portion which will slow down the opposite person who is coming for war. So that is called moat. And when you see the present situation, the moat is being transformed into portion which has which has been landscaped here. This is the moat during the ancient period. Now it's been transformed into landscape area. Did you all get an understanding about the Tower of London? So here in this class, I have discussed about Pisa Group Italy, and the next one is the France architecture. So in that we had discussed about Abe Hawks homes, and next one is your England architecture, which had two periods. One is Anglo-Saxon period and Norman period.
Mom? Mom?
Sorry,
Yeah, ma'am, now you heard.
sorry, I unknowingly muted the mic. So this is our planning of Pisa Cathedral, the elevation and view, and this is a part section of it, and where this section explains all the parts of the cathedral being constructed. And this is our leaning tower of Pisa, which is also called as campanile, and these are the various floor plans at different levels. So first one will be the this floor plan till this solid wall, and the second plan is the plan for these elements, like all these floors, and this third one is the top plan. So they have explained about this Pisa, leaning tower of Pisa in a detailed manner, and then we saw about this baptistry where they have changed the structure after so they have constructed the structure earlier and later they changed a few things in the baptistry, and so the dome was also changed. And initially they had just a truncated cone and then they added the dome. And so this is the picture of Pisa Cathedral where we have this leaning tower and this cathedral here, and here we can find the baptistry at the last end. And this is about France Romanesque architecture, where it has been explained about the elements which were used in churches. And this is an example for France Romanesque architecture, which is Abe Hawks homes. And then we saw about England, the Romanesque architecture, where it had two types. One is Anglo-Saxon and the other one is the Norman period. And Anglo-Saxon had different style and Norman had different style. So they, and next one is the Tower of London. So this is about Tower of London. The existing photograph of Tower of London is here. Mukil, please mute your audio. Mukil, till that we saw about Romanesque architecture in last class, and we'll see about Gothic architecture. We saw major differences in Romanesque and Gothic in the last class in the video. So in this, I will also show you a video which says about Gothic architecture. So we'll see a brief introduction about it. So the Gothic architecture was actually originated in France in 12th to 16th century. And after the Romanesque architecture, they started this Gothic architecture, like um, like how they adapted Roman construction technologies in Romanesque period. They adapted few technologies of Romanesque period in Gothic style. Okay, then it was different from Greece and Rome. The most probably they didn't follow the Roman architecture and Greek architecture, and it had a different style called ecclesiastical style, and it was also indulged in. Can you see my slide?
Yes,
I
ma'am.
don't know. No, are you seeing the slide which has words? I think you are seeing the previous one.
Ma'am, we are seeing the slide named Brief Introduction, ma'am.
Okay, okay. So it is indulged in secular architecture, and it had vaulted halls, which is very vast, and then there was the architecture and vaulting style was developed here. They started finding out different types of walls, and new style of architecture was also adapted. And they also used the sculpture, stained glasses, and paintings in Gothic style of churches. And they had different themes. So iconographic themes were there for holiness and reverence. And they thought the churches should have a different specific meaning. And in all the cathedrals, they had altars which are dedicated to the saints. That is the person who are doing, who is a priest there. So we'll see a brief introduction about Gothic architecture in this video. The people who have cine actors photographed as profile picture, can you please change it? Either you can place your own initials or just you can change your photographs. Because if I take a screenshot, then I can find Surya and some other person, Telugu actor in this photograph. So please change the cine actors' photos. It's a humble request to you all. Can you? Copy. That's it. Okay, I will show you just an introduction of Gothic architecture. Please see the video.
Welcome to EDC Architecture, your guide to the built environment. What is Gothic architecture and what makes it unique? Gothic architecture came out of the Middle Ages, with the first truly Gothic building occurring around 1140 AD. And no, it wasn't built by Goths.
Whatever.
It was built by the French. Contrary to modern-day Goths who embraced the dark, Gothic architecture was considered uplifting for its time. Gothic cathedrals are partly recognizable because of their large walls of stained glass windows, which allow light to fill large open spaces and create a heavenly environment. But to construct these open spaces and walls of glass, they had to be creative. Builders of the Middle Ages took traditional methods of construction from around Europe and the Near East and modified them to reduce the need for load-bearing walls, bulky columns, and built higher than ever before. Here's how they did it. The most important element of Gothic architecture is the pointed arch. Arches provide a method for opening space while maintaining the strength of the walls. They allow for things such as doors and windows. While these guys knew about the rounded arch, the pointed arch is something they important.
Is the audio clear to you?
No, ma'am. Double கேக்குதுமா.
இப்போ ஓகேவான்னு கொஞ்சம் செக் பண்ணுங்க.
Just took traditional methods of construction from around Europe and the Near East and modified them to reduce the need for load-bearing walls, bulky columns, and built higher than ever before. Here's how they did it. The most
She is actually explaining about Gothic style buildings. So they actually used pointed arches even in doors and windows. So all the doors and windows were specifically made in pointed arches. They didn't use semicircular arches here because they found that this pointed arches will have more strength than the uh, normal arches, so that the building will have more. Even if you put more weight, you can find the pointed arches are being great. So they actually took this pointed arch from this Aqsa. So that's what they are showing here. So the style is chosen from some other style of architecture, but not their own. So when you put a lot of weight on semicircular arches, you can see that the arch is going will break down, and pointed arch will not break down easily. That's why they started using pointed arch. And by using the pointed arch, they had a major benefit in that. So they tried using these walls. So first one was barrel vault, which was done in semicircular arches. Then they started using groin vault, which was there in the Romanesque period itself. And this they started using the rib vault. Okay, and they gave columns, slender columns were given. So here you can see the columns which are being given in churches. And one more main point which was used in Gothic was the flying buttress. So this style will be followed in Romanesque style. Near the arch, they will give elements which is followed in Romanesque style. But in Gothic, they had with one unique style where they supported the walls, external walls, with this elements was connected column. So you can say this column is connected.
Ma'am, your voice is breaking, ma'am. No, ma'am, still it's breaking.
Now it's okay.
Yeah, ma'am, now it's okay.
See, this building is actually an example of Romanesque style where they didn't go more height, and this one is Gothic style. They went to larger heights due to the support given by the flying buttress. Okay, and they had stained glass windows in the structure. That was the main thing used in Gothic style, and they had large windows. All the windows were large enough to penetrate proper lighting. And they had one more thing. See, all the sculptures were intricate, and they used a window called rose window, where it had this star shaped in between, and the other shapes were continuing together. So they want each and every cathedral you can find this rose window, and they use sculptures, and glasses were painted with all the Christianity depicting photographs. So this is also a style of Gothic architecture only, and they used gargoyles. This is called gargoyle. Um, so they had two types of structure. One is for depicting fire. The other one is depicting water. Those sculptures were also used in the facade of the churches. And Gothic architecture started to flourish in all these parts, which they showed. So, Gothic architecture flourished in all these parts, not only in France. So, all these parts had Gothic style churches. And here you can see the rose window here again, and flying buttresses. And they used a new type of walls called sexparted walls.
beginning of the Renaissance.
Beginning of the Renaissance. When it was gradually
Gothic architecture was followed by Renaissance period. That's what they are about to say. And they had Gothic revival also. They used few more styles along with Gothic style, so it came into a name called Gothic revival. And then they are given an explanation for the name Gothic. We'll stop with this video. Okay, I'll stop this video. Just give me a second. Okay, these two links are also an update for the Gothic style. You can refer this when I send you the notes. Okay, so construction techniques. Okay. So construction techniques, main construction techniques which were used for Gothic were, it was the dimensions were taken mathematically or geometrically taken, and then vertical members were given supports. All the vertical members were given supports, and then pointed arches were prominent. Can you see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. They use this pointed arches in all the elements like doors, windows, everything was made using the pointed arches. Yeah, then vertical members were given supports like, as I told, they use flying buttresses to give support. And then the next one is they tried different type of vaulting. So this is the groin vault which we saw in the video, and next rib vault was there. So this is kind of a rib vault, and here fan walls were given. You can also see that there are different kind of walls here, and this is called sexpartite walls. So it is actually the wall has been separated into 6 parts. So that's why it's called sexpartite walls. And then they had the buttresses, flying buttresses, which had the single span and double span. So this is called a single span flying buttress. And this side, when you see this picture, you can see it as a double span flying buttress. So this is a double span flying buttress, where you can find the columns. Two columns are being placed, and they support each structure here. So this will be the main structure on the left hand side, and here you have one column, and the other column will be located on the exterior. So that is for double span flying buttress. And main common features of Gothic architecture. So it had a grand, tall designs. All the Gothic style buildings were very much taller, and it was very much grandeur. And they had a lot of height, because the height was achieved in the Gothic architecture only because of the flying butters. Since they had this support given externally using the flying butters, they were able to achieve more heights. So that's why they have all the churches in Gothic style will have more height, and then they use the spires. We'll see what is the spires. The next one is the flying buttress, and the fourth one is the pointed arch. The main element is pointed arch, and fifth one is vaulted ceiling, which they use different type of ceiling for different spaces. So if the spacing of the vault is being different, then they will have different type of walls. So you can have ribbed wall or barrel wall depending upon the span of the wall where you are going to give. Next one is slender columns. If you see Romanesque style, the columns were like two or three walls built together. All the columns will be so much thicker, so you will not find the columns in Romanesque architecture. It had a great build structure with the columns, and here they used slender columns which were supported by the walls. That's what we saw in the YouTube video. And the next one is the rose windows. They were always using the rose windows, and clerestory windows were also used. So they had this rose window will be a circular type of thing which is being used, and clerestory windows were used in the topmost floors. Like even no, not in the topmost floors. In clerestory windows will be used in the height of a ventilator. When you give a ventilator at home, you can where will it give it? It will be given above 7 feet, right? So likewise, they will be providing the clerestory windows above that. And Triforium galleries. The Triforium galleries was the thing which I'll show in the next slide, which is then they had light and airy interior, because since it had lot of openings with a lot of stained glasses, and the openings were higher and huge, so it had lot of light traveling, passing in through the churches. And it was airy because the church itself is a big structure, so it had lot of space to be circulated inside it, and so it becomes airy. And the next one is the different sculptures which were used. So as I showed you, they depicted gargoyles and human figures. More of human figures and gargoyles were depicted in the facade of the building. And then they gave more importance in decorative and ornate designs. So this decoration or ornate design, according to Gothic style, was giving a sculpture. They gave all the kind of different kind of sculpture in that. So here we will see few examples of Gothic style. See, this is a a grand tall design of Gothic style, which was huge and grandeur. The flying buttresses, the spires are this one. The flying buttresses which were used, and the pointed arches. All the arches were done using pointed arch. The vaulted ceiling, the slender columns, rose windows are being given in all the churches. So rose windows and clerestory windows are these things which are given. All these are called clear story windows. And Triforium galleries is the one which is shown here. In the entire um, gallery after the arch. So you have an arcade here, which covers the aisle and the nave. So the portion above the aisle and nave is called the Triforium gallery. You can find this Triforium galleries being placed in all type of churches. See here also you can see the Triforium gallery. But that was closed and this is open. So in this you can see that it's closed or it has less space and I hope so. Here it's open. And this kind of sculptures were also used. You can see how intricate the details were done. This is in, I think this is in a doorway. So they have placed Jesus Christ photos along with people here, and all the sculptures were given. And these type of gargoyles were also given. The emphasis which is on decorative style and ornate designs are this one. So you can find that they have created styles which were very minute and which is a very breathtaking one where you can find where you cannot find any mistakes in the decoration. Let me see whether the YouTube is opening.
In two types of architecture. First Romanesque and then more Gothic architecture.
Yeah, it's opening. I'll just share you this window. So can you see the YouTube one? Can you see the YouTube screen?
No, ma'am.
No. This is about Romanesque with versus Gothic. So in this video, they'll be pointing out few points which differs from Romanesque and Gothic.
In the Middle Ages, cathedrals were built in two types of architecture. First Romanesque and then more Gothic architecture.
So let's talk
So
about
let's
the
talk about the
differences.
Ma'am,
differences.
actually,
I have a
both the
graph here
mics are
to
on,
help
ma'am.
us
So
out.
we can.
Romanesque architecture.
Tell me.
Ma'am, both the mics are on, ma'am. So we could hear it double, ma'am.
Okay. Now just check.
Literally means Roman-like
Cannot hear.
architecture.
So let's talk about the differences between this.
And I have a graphic here to help us out. Romanesque architecture literally means Roman-like, built in two types of architecture. First Romanesque and then more Gothic architecture. So let's talk about the differences between this, and I have a graphic here to help us out.
The voice is very low.
Yes, ma'am.
Romanesque architecture literally means
Roman-like
Roman-like
architecture.
One of the
One of
reasons
the reasons why it's called that
is it
is
Now it's okay.
Gothic
Gothic
architecture.
architecture. So let's talk about the differences
Yeah,
between this and
hearing
I have a
double,
guy
man.
here to help us out. Romanesque
Both the
architecture
mics.
literally means Roman-like architecture. One of the reasons why it's called that is it has these rounded
Super clear
arches.
Alkapa.
Okay,
No,
so
ma'am.
let's say we
We are
take
editing
this
double.
Roman arch and we want to build it really tall.
Okay, then I'll just share you the links alone. You just watch it in your mobile itself. So can you see the PPT now? If I switch off the mic, okay. If I switch off the mic in my computer, it doesn't play the audio, so I can't do that. The audio is very low without speaker, so obviously it's not possible to hear for you. I hope so. So I'll just share you the link. You can refer it in your mobile itself. Yeah, I'll start with this. So we're going to see about French Gothic. We saw there are three types of Gothic style itself in different places. So first one is the French Gothic, where it started in France. They had different type of vaulted ceiling as told earlier. So they used ribbed walls, sexpartite walls, and fanned walls. These three types of walls were used in France. And rose windows was the main thing in the Gothic style, so they used rose windows also. And clear story windows were used over the Triforium gallery. So after this Triforium gallery, the window which is placed above is called the clear story windows. Okay, so they have placed all the clerestory windows in above the Triforium galleries, and then they said that churches will bring life into people's life. Light into people's life. So they wanted the interiors to be lit up brighter and glowing in a glowing way. So they had high ceilings, and the interiors were airy and very lifted actually. Light, it's not light, it's lifted. And the gargoyles were used mainly. So they had different types of gargoyles being used, which will depict the devil also. So they used all these gargoyles as sculptures in the front facade, and then they gave emphasis on decorative style and ornate designs. And even in the French Gothic, they had subdivided into these categories. One is the early Gothic, then High Gothic, Rayonnant, and Flamboyant. So in early Gothic, which started in 1140, so we told that the period of Gothic style was from 12th to 16th century. So this early Gothic started in the year 1140 with adapting the pointed arches, and they said it was a transition from the Romanesque architecture. And buildings, the building which was constructed had higher walls, and they separated this into four tiers. So first one is the arcade, which has arches and piers. So arcade is nothing but a portion which has arches. So the arches and piers which were divided as arcade, and then gallery, and then Triforium and the clerestory. So this is your gallery, this is your Triforium, so this is your Triforium, and above this is your clerestory. And they actually supported the higher walls by using flying buttresses. They use six-parted walls. So they in the ribbed wall itself they use six parts of ribbed walls. So next one is few examples of this period are Sense Cathedral, Leon Cathedral, Toll Cathedral, and Notre Dame. So initially, the early Gothic started in 1124, that is in the 12th century, and the higher Gothic started in the year 13th century. So it had the same features, like it had tall and majestic structures. But in this, they have segregated into three tiers. One is arcade, triforium, and clear story. They didn't mention about the gallery, and then they changed clerestory windows. One window was changed into, and then it was united by small rose window. Even they had windows like two shutters will be given with opening, and rose window. And then they changed this rib wall from six to four ribs. They didn't want six ribs, so they changed it into four ribs. And they used flying buttresses which had either single span or double span also. Uh, According to them, the people who were in France, if double span means then it had lower. If it has double span flying buttresses, it will have higher wall and the stability of the wall will be more. Okay, then they had sculptures which integrates classical and literal elements of Gothic style, and few examples which are under High Gothic period are Amiens Cathedral, Notre Dame de Paris, Bourges Cathedral. So these four cathedrals come under High Gothic. Next one is the Rionite. So this Lioness Style was built in the year 14th century AD. So they had more of windows. The walls were pierced with more of windows. When you see this Rionan style, you can find more windows rather than walls. And they had lace-like tracery screens on the exterior. So exterior was also uh, faced with the windows, and they had elements which bears the load of wall, and they used flying buttresses there also to save it. And next one is they developed a band window. The band window is nothing but the central strip was richly covered stained glass and is positioned between the lower and upper bands of clear glass. So when you take band windows, they had a center portion which is painted with stained glass, and the top and bottom portion will be clear glass. So that if you have provided clear glass, the light will easily pass on to it. So they have provided clear glass only for the lighting purpose, and then they started using window tracery. So the structure had the style had importance. Two types of cathedral. One is Reims Cathedral and one is the Santa Chapel. Next one is the Ryan. And So in this, they had bar tracery in stone elements separating the glass panels with the window are constructed out of narrow carved moldings with rounded inner and outer profiles. The elements are separated by glazing panels, and then they create a narrow carved molding to create a inner and outer profile. The rounded inner and outer profile, and then they used glasses for Triforium galleries. So the Triforium galleries were present inside, and they used glass for that. And then they had the Triforium had double pitch roof, which was putting the ale, and then it had gutters to drain the rainwater. The gutter was running through the structure to drain the rainwater. And the outer wall of the triforium were glazed, and inner wall was reduced to slender bar tracery. Bar tracery. Okay, this one is flamboyant structure. So I have shared the notes for Unit 1 in Google Classroom of History, and so I have shared the syllabus as well as Unit 1's two parts, like Part 1 and Part 2 are there in Unit 1 itself. So I have shared both the PPTs, and you can find the PPTs located in high and low lying areas, like high. If you understand the style till this, that okay arches, we have seen four types of Gothic, French Gothic, uh, which had used different styles, which had used uh, all the definitions given for Gothic style, but it was used in a different way. So after completing this, we'll be seeing about a church called Cathedral of Notre Dame. So Notre Dame is a structure where you have to go on stuck. It had double A's. See here, you can see the double A's are there, and there is a nave here. And it was ambulatories were also present in the axial line. And then the transepts. What I mean by transepts, we have seen in last class as to what is meant by transepts. Transept is the portion where the cross comes and joins. So the intersecting portion is called the transept. So the transept will run from north to south direction. So that was a definition given for Romanesque style. Here the transepts are not extended. They have an aisle here. So till the aisle alone, the transept is being extended. Okay, so this is the transept. So this is the interior of Notre Dame, Paris, where the elevation was divided into was 4 levels. It had arcade of columnar piers. So all these piers were it had column with piers, and the arcade was running throughout the aisle, and they had a small clerestory of windows. So see, you can see above this they had a small clerestory windows, which was very small in size, and the vault which was used here is a six-quartet vault, and it has double base. So the vault was very high, which was usually 30 meters high. And so when you enter this building, you can find the massiveness of the building. And they used double span flying buttresses to support the nave. And in 13th century, and they tried to lighten the interiors by expanding the clerestory windows downwards, which and they also used quadripartite walls. So larger windows were used and quadripartite walls were used. So this will be the planning of Notre Dame. So they have given plan here, the total plan here, and this one is a so this is explaining the enlarged detail of the plan, where we can see that it had these aisles are double the size. When you see in the plan, you can see that the aisle is only this much, but here the aisle is actually this much bigger, and this one is your section. Yeah, this is an example of Gothic style where we can find the rose windows, and here they have given intricate styles of doors and arches are being done. And this is also one more example for that. So with this, we'll finish up with the Notre Dame, that is Gothic style in France. So Notre Dame is the major building which will be built in this Gothic style for French. So we'll see about the other buildings in the next class. What about your assignments? Did you complete and submit it in the classroom? I think only 24 students have joined in Google Classroom for HOA. So others, please ask them to join. And if you have finished sketching, please upload it in the classroom link which is given. And you have to upload it before today because I'm going to close with Unit 1. So you can try to find out whether it's okay. Just a second. I'll just note down your attendance. Can you answer your attendance? Madravani? Harika?
Yes, ma'am.
Roshan is absent. Manika Raja absent. Correct? Meena present. Muhammad Musa absent. You have any, and just switch on and just speak with me. Nandini is absent. Naveen Kumar absent. Meghna Sai absent. Rajavardhan present. Naveen Kumar is there.
Present, ma'am.
Musab, Naveen, I didn't see you from the beginning of class. Just now came
No,
in.
ma'am, I was.
You were there. What about Mohammed Musab?
Yes, ma'am.
You were there in the class?
Yes, ma'am. I have a network issue, ma'am.
Okay, Rajavardhan present, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Padma Priya present. Paripurani
Yes, ma'am.
present.
Present, ma'am.
Purna Tejas,
Present, ma'am.
Pranay Kumar, Pranay was there. I don't know what happened to him. Preeti, Preeti, Raghavi,
Present, ma'am.
Ramita,
Present, ma'am.
Samson Nafia,
Present, ma'am.
Santosh, Saraswati, Shahin Fatima,
Present, ma'am.
Shamita,
Present, ma'am. Present, ma'am.
Shalini, Shruti, Shruti. Okay, I'll just put present for her. I saw her from the class. I hope some network issue. Surya,
Present, ma'am.
Tamil Selvan,
Yes, ma'am.
Tulasi Raman, Shanmuga Sri, Jishnu,
Yes, ma'am. Present, ma'am.
Jishnu, okay. Uma Mageshwaran,
Yes, ma'am.
Vaishnav, Veeramukhi.
Present, ma'am. Vaishnav.
Vaishnav present, Veeramukhi. Okay, okay. Preeti, were you present in the class from the beginning?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, thank you all. We'll meet in the next class.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am.